Hello, so we are playing some Enigmatic Incarnation Elementals. Um, deck was very good. I played it the last 3-4 days, and I have like incredible win rate with it. And it plays out very similar to four color piles you've seen a lot of, but this one is definitely far more interesting and more fun to play. So we'll just go quickly through the deck. Okay, so besides from regular full coral omnat piles, uh, our game plan here is primarily based on Rise and Reef and Enigmatic Incarnation. So these 8 cards are our main cards that we use to win games, and they are most important and for deck, and everything else is just built around those 2 cards. So uh, we have some enchantments and some more enchantments which we use to sec on our enigmatic incarnation, and then we use that to tutor for our creatures. So our creatures, on 2 mana, we have Charming Prince and Phantasmal Image. So these are the only 2 creatures good enough to be played in modern, which allow us to copy or blink our creatures, which are pretty strong. And that means copying Rise and Reef, copying our Solitudes, Furies, Skyclad Apparitions, and so on. Okay, so on 3 mana, we have 4 Rise and Reef, which is the main engine of this deck, and also 1 Glasspool Mimic, which acts as a 28 land, but also a very good enigmatic incarnation target that can be used to copy our Horizon Reef or our Solitude's Furies and so on. So, um, for this deck to function, we need a lot of enchantments, so we have more of those on 2 mana. Uh, I have 4 Spreading Seas, which is definitely the best 2 mana enchantment playable in modern. But also we have 3 Omen of the Sea, which is also very good in the deck because it is a Yorion deck, and it plays very good with Yorion, and it also offers a very fine card advantage. Um, and there is also 1 Omen of the Forge, because we are kind of light on removal, and I prefer to play this 1 Omen of the Forge than the 4th Omen of the Sea. Sometimes you just need 2 damage to kill Ragavan or some other low toughness creature. Okay, so this is the Dryzen Reef, a Solitude Fury deck. So we are playing 3 Ephemerates, which is pretty cool in a deck and pretty good. Also, this deck don't play Enigmatic Incarnation, as don't play Expressive Iteration as other 4 color piles, so we want some more card advantage than just Rise and Reef, and Showdown of the Skulls fills that role really well. And because it's also enchantment that we can sec on our enigmatic incarnation to find our one of fury or solitude, and but it's also good by itself because it digs very good for our solitudes, furies, and removal and other stuff. So enigmatic incarnation is also kind of very big card advantage, and most of the decks don't have solution for this card, and once it hits the field against control or semi-control matchups, it's pretty much game over for them. So haven't seen much enigmatic incarnation decks on in league results, but I made this version in paper and played in my LGS for some time already, so I decided to try it on to bring it in the league online, and it did really well. Um, I had I had several 4-1 results before making the 5-0, and overall result of the deck and the win rate is definitely really well. So it is basically a four-color Omnat pile, but some very different cards and a very different strategy. No counter spells at all in main or sideboard, just two disputes. Okay, so if we look at our lands, you can see that I'm playing one Bosiju and one Tavara, and two Triumphs, and all other are basics, shocks, and fetches. So, two foothills, four heats, four rainforest, and two strands. Okay, so we don't have enough space to play bolts, march, and other stuff. So we have just our four prismatic endings here, which is definitely the best of them all. And along with some Omen, Skyclave, Deputy, Furies, and Solitudes, that's about it for our removals. But as you will see in this video, it's definitely more than enough. A deck is pretty good at killing creatures, and Enigmatic Incarnation also allow us to tutor that creatures and our creature removals, and then copy those. And so I would say the deck is very good, uh, very good in the removal department, and doesn't lack removals at all. So on sideboard, we have some graveyard hate split in Rest in Peace and Endurance, because both of those are very good. Endurance because it synergizes with our Rise and Reef. Rest in Peace also does the job really well, and if needed, we can also sack it on our Enigmatic Incarnation to find something we need. Um, then also one Sanctifier and Vec as kind of a graveyard hate against Murktide decks, red-based Murktide decks, and Grixis and stuff like that. Also one Magus of the Moon on sideboard, which can be used to beat Amulet Titan, Tron decks, stuff like that. Also Boseiju, second copy of Boseiju on sideboard, helps us with that too. So two more two Teferis are in main, and two more in sideboard to help us against control matchups, and but more importantly to help us win against Living End, as I'm very light on Living End hate. Uh, it's not easy to draw one of these four cards in 80 card deck against Living End, so I need more of those, and Teferi is probably the best option to try to hate that. Also some more artifact enchantment hate in One Night of Autumn, which is fetchable, and then blinkable, also Boseiju, two Bosejus and Otawaras, along with Skyclave Apparition and Deputy, and ending also cover that artifact enchantment hate, and it's more than enough just to play as few as as those two. Also, on 2 mana spot, we have another artifact hate in Collector Ophi, which is probably the best. because we can bring it in against Tron matchup, we can bring it in against the Hammer, Hardened Scales, and really a lot of matchups, like a lot more matchups like um, I forgot the name, the um, combo artifact that kills us. Uh, Belcher, yeah, of course, Belcher. So besides from that, second copy of Furies on sideboard and two mystical disputes that can. I decided to play mystical disputes instead of Wheel of Summer because it's right now it's a better card because it can be used when we play our mirror matchups against Murktide, and it also protects our spells for cheap mana that we want to get through in game 2 and 3. Okay, so just 27 lands and Glasspool Mimic as 28, and that proved for me to be more than enough. But it is possible to add definitely one more land. So I just finished the league with 5-0, and we are going to go through the matches and see all the matches. Okay, so we'll start from game one. All games were 2-0, 2-0 wins, but game one. Okay, so I can't remember what was the matchup, but we'll just go through it together. So playing second, kept two lander. Decided, and this I think this is really important because I did um, lose some matches when I played Abundant Growth turn one in these situations, and because Hollow Fountain is really awkward with the Bren, and I think it's definitely safer to play to save Abundant Growth for turn two to play it on Hollow Fountain, and then turn three we'll have our Bren. And prismatic endings, solitude, and so on. So I think this is much safer play. Uh, but I drew in forest, and then I was able to play Ren at turn two anyway. But I okay. So game one was Tameshi combo. Uh, they played Teferi, and luckily I had the prismatic ending for it. uh, Hold the Solitude in hand for to be able to insta kill the Tameshi. They had the combo on turn three, but I played my Solitude. They didn't have second Tameshi at this moment, so but I was kind of at a weird situation at this point because I didn't find another removal with my showdown, and they played their Teferi, so it was definitely a kind of awkward spot, but they didn't have Tameshi at this point, so I just played my cards, tried to draw something, but unfortunately they did find it, and that was it. So that was game one. Uh, okay, I'll just hold before starting game two. And just to say that in this matchup, we bring in Collector Ophi, which is great against them because it stops Lotus Bloom. Definitely our Greater Hate, Rest in Peace, and 2 Endurance. Magus of the Moon is also very good against them because they play 4 color mana base. And Teferi is also okay if you have cards in a deck that don't do much in this matchup. So Uh, for those cards, uh, for those cards, you can take out Charming Prince, uh, maybe Glasspool Mimic, One Reef, uh, Fury because it's not instant speed, removal, and you'll mostly not be able to use it. Uh, Again, you can remove most of your prismatic endings and maybe leave one or two in. And if you're playing second, you can remove all showdown of the skulls because it will probably be a bit too slow. Okay, so that's it. If you're playing the first, like now, you can leave all two showdowns, maybe leave one out if you're not sure what to take out. Spreading seas is not too good also against them, so you can also remove. mm, two of spreading seas, but it's also good to leave two in to have to have enough enchantment count for your enigmatic incarnation. Also in matches when where you're removing a lot of enchantments from main. You can also think about removing one or two enigmatic incarnations, but I really don't do it that often, so mostly I sometimes remove just one incarnation if I'm removing two spreading seas and Omen of the Forge from the main, and but that's about it. So okay, so we're ready for check out the game two. Game two I played first. Um, I had an okay hand with two Solitude. That's always good against Tameshi. Also draw into Endurance, which is kind of a perfect hand for me at this point. So I played my Tameshi to make sure they are not able to respond on our Solitude if they try to go off, but also to stop their Lotus Bloom and from resolving. And again had a very good hand with Vren killing the fairy, abundant growth, and drew a land. And I was just holding my ephemerate with solitude and endurance to have more options. And they again tried to go for it, but I had a lot of stuff I could do. So I decided to go for endurance at this point, just to blink it and start attacking, and then I'll be able to go solitude on my turn and hold another one if needed. Okay, so at this point, this game is pretty much over, but of course have to finish it. I decided to resolve the ephemerate and just plus both of my planeswalkers. They had another Tameshi, but at this point they need Lotus Bloom and Tameshi, so Tameshi by itself doesn't do much. Um, they did succeed to find another Lotus Bloom to put it into graveyard, but it was too late. I just attacked for 9 and pinged them with Vren. So that was it. That was game 2. Kind of had everything I needed. And so it was easy game for me. And game 3 I had to mulligan, but it was a pretty decent mulligan. I had my Collector Ophi, Ryzen Reef, also drew into Topias Pro, which is definitely great at this point. And they had a lot of Bloom on suspend, and I had my Teferi ready for next turn. So I was pretty happy about that and not worried about them exiling Ren. So I just played my Teferi, drew into Endurance, hold my Endurance, and also have a Collector Ophi next turn. Felt very good. And they just had Apparition uh, to attack my Teferi, so it wasn't a large problem. They did find another Lotus Bloom, but as I said, I had everything I need to win this. So at this point, I had more options, and as I already had Graveyard Hate in my hand, I decided to play Collector Office, so they are not able to get to do some big mana things like play Colossus from hand into drawing multiple lands and stuff like that. And also my Teferi prevented their second Lotus Bloom from resolving. Um, yeah, so I kind of had it all game 3 also. They really couldn't do much at this point, so they conceded. Okay, that was it. Game 1. Um, all other games were straight 2-0 wins. And it's kind of risky, but when you have your Utopia, Abundant Growth, and Rising Reef in hand, which means you just need one land, it's pretty keepable. So Utopia on 1 and drawing land means I can play my Rising Reef on turn 2, holding Solitude and Skyclave against Amulet Titan, and that's definitely really good. So I wanted to play my Resin Reef first before playing Solitude to get some more value, some more cards in hand, and it was definitely good. Drew me not one prismatic ending to have some options against them resolving Titan. But they didn't have much at this point. I just killed one Dryad, and they obviously didn't have a Titan in hand, or they would probably play this turn. Um, so drawing two prismatic endings meant I was able to kill both of them, their amulets, which meant there is no chance for them to play Titan next turn. And I was pretty happy with my hand, with Solitude, Incarnation, Showdown, so all some pretty good stuff. Um, I also drew into land, which meant I can play uh, many of my stuff. So I just went Horizon Reef into Topia Sprawl, into Ren, return fetch, and they were still on 5 mana, so really behind. Um, and I had a lot of cards with Showdown, also drawing 3 with every Rise and Reef ability. And I missed 1 damage to have little this turn, but having Solitude in hand meant that I don't need to rush and can just Solitude their Titan if they play it before their attack. So also Solitude ability gives me 3 cards in hand, and it was unwinnable for them at this point. So for this matchup, you board in a second procedure, Magus of the Moon definitely, Knight of Autumn, and 1 Fury. Okay, there's not much, but uh, it's kind of everything you need because your primer you can win without all anything from the sideboard, but Magus of the Moon makes it much easier. Also Bosiju, if you draw it with Vren, it's definitely great, and One Night of Autumn is also cool when you draw it along with ephemerate, and you can kill a lot of stuff with that. Okay, so you can take out many things. You definitely want to keep your omens of this, your spreading seas, sorry, and prismatic endings, which are definitely important in this matchup, and your enigmatic incarnations are also important because they find you on Magus of the Moon and also your removal creatures. So that are pretty important, but you can maybe remove two showdowns, definitely Omen of the Forge, and you can take out one Omen of the Sea. Also, you can always remove your Glasspool Mimic if you're adding you besiege you from the sideboard. So you will keep your land count the same, and Glasspool Mimic is not so important in this matchup. Okay, so game 2. Game 2 had to mulligan the first hand because it was just too much land. Here, having a draw on turn 1 and turn 2 means I can probably try to find something good against them, and I went like that, just went for Omen of the Sea, try to draw something, hold my Solitude if they play Dryad, and I still didn't have much, but I find my Wren with Procedure in hand. Um but I opted to go for Omelette. To go for Rise and Reef, and then this turn I decided to go Wren because I didn't have fetch in hand to play my Omelette this turn, and Wren meant that next turn I can play my Besiege and return it to my hand and then hold it again along with Solitude, which means I have a solution for everything they do. Um, Being able to kill a Dryad and a Titan with my hand, it's definitely great. And at this point, I had also Magus of the Moon on the field, with which I found with my Enigmatic Incarnation, which meant it's a pretty hard game for them. So just played the Rise and Reef to get some more cards, and then copy it end of turn with the Enigmatic Incarnation. Left my island back to be able to use Procedure if needed. But at this point, with Enigmatic Incarnation on the field, two Rise and Reef, I have just too many options. And too much card advantage for them to deal with anything. Also, with Ephemerate in hand, I can protect my um, Magus. So at this point, just drawing a bunch of cards, which I oh, don't really need, but you definitely want to make sure you have all possible answers in your hand. Um, if they do some crazy draws. So at this point, I don't want to give them any more life. I want to kill them as fast as possible. And that was it. Okay, so kind of easy games against Amulet. They had a bad hand game 2 and made it super easy for me to beat them. It was just too slow. And I had my Utopia's Pro turn 1, which helped a lot. So, game 3. Let's go to game 3. Playing first, I can't remember what was this matchup. I kept a kind of weird hand with just 4 drops, like 2 Omnat, 1 Showdown, and Solitude. So very weird hand. I usually wouldn't keep a hand like this, but at this point I didn't have any idea what I was playing against. I thought it's probably Cascade Rhinos. So I just wanted to put urine in my hand to find some basics because of the Blood Moon main. I had my planes in hand and the prismatic ending, and 1 forest was more than enough for me to deal with Blood Moon if they play it. So I just put my urine in hand and planning to go Omnat next turn. When they played the Fire Ice, I thought for sure this is Cascade deck, but then they play Remand, and I was really confused. So at this point, I thought, okay, I'm probably playing against Reclamation, Temur Reclamation, but then they played, but then Remand is kind of a weird inclusion for that deck, and they played Snow Land, but their basics are not snow, so it was also kind of weird. And at this point, I came to conclusion that this is probably some kind of Valakut deck, because there is no other explanation why would they play this land and non-snow basics. So they kind of countered most of my spells, and so I just started playing my cantrips and to see what will happen. Just kind of wait till they run out of their counter spells. So, but they still had Snapcaster into third Cryptic Omens, so it was probably going to be a very long game. So I was running out of my card advantage cards, and them having 6 cards in hand definitely didn't feel too good. Um, Especially if you count in the number of counterspells they played to this point. So I wasn't really expecting for this showdown to resolve, but it did, which was definitely kind of definitely surprising, and especially when I exiled 3 Enigmatic Incarnation and Spreading Seas with it. So they countered my Enigmatic Incarnation, which is kind of very weird that they didn't counter this showdown, which probably meant that they only have 1 counterspell, but still, not countering showdown was definitely most probably a mistake for them. And it allowed me to resolve my Spreading Seas and Enigmatic Incarnation. So I was able to start jamming my Horizon Reefs in play, uh, but I was still definitely in danger of losing here. I tried to save my Horizon Reef, tried to see what I will draw, but I didn't draw any instant speed uh, card, but that is okay. Just drew a bunch of spells that could grow my Horizon Reef, and also went into second Horizon Reef and some more spells to pump my Horizon Reef out of Lightning Bolt range. I've just played a bunch of these uh, cheap enchantments and then find a third Horizon Reef with my Enigmatic Incarnation to make sure I have fast skill as possible, and they did finally get their Valak active. But at this point, I had too many cards in hand, too many solutions, and but I was still weak to maybe I don't know if they play like bring to light into scape shift or scape shift stuff like that. So I just needed to kill them as fast as possible. So at this point, I drew like 8 cards with my Rising Reefs and Abundant Growths, and they conceded after that. Okay, so that was game one. Pretty weird game against deck that I'm still not sure what really does. So, um, but we'll go through the cyber plan for control matchup like this. We definitely bring in 2 disputes to try to protect some of our important spells. You can definitely bring in 2 Teferis against this matchup when they have so much counter spells, and that's about it. So also brought in 2 Endurance because I saw they play Snapcaster, and it was better than some other options I had in the deck. So um I brought in those 6 cards and removed. Um, I removed. You can remove Fury. I removed 1 Fury, uh, 1 Solitude because they don't really play almost any creatures or even permanents. So that's the reason why I removed 4 Prismatic Endings, 1 Fury, 1 Solitude, and that's it. So I also removed 1 Omen of the Forge, I think, and brought in 1 Night of Autumn because I still wasn't sure if they play like Wilderness Reclamation or something like that. So that's it. Let's check out the game 2. Again, I wanted to make sure that I'm good, uh, that I have a lot of basics because their deck felt really weird and I wasn't sure what they're playing. They played 2 Search for Tomorrows, so I had the fairy in hand, but okay, so this was really weird because I definitely didn't expect my Teferi to resolve with them having 5 lands, especially if you see the number of counterspells they resolved on game 1. So it was definitely very weird that this Teferi resolved. So I just wanted to plus it as much as possible because I saw they play lightning bolts, and they kind of really didn't play anything after that. It was really kind of weird game and weird matchup. I also didn't have much in hand, just my uh, card draw, card advantage, but it's definitely more than enough. At this point, I play my showdown, exile a bunch of cards along with Rising Reef. For some more card advantage to start attacking them and drawing more cards. It's because that's what you want in a control matchup. The only out is probably Escape Shift, but they're kind of low on cards, and Rising Reef is also great with Omnat because it can put the 3rd land into play, which can deal then 4 damage to hand. And that's it. So that was game 2. kind of very easy game. And weird, definitely weird matchup. I still don't know what my opponent played. Did he play? Did he play the like bring to light something like that? Okay, game 4. I'm playing against goblins, and that's mostly win for my deck. It's definitely hard for goblins to battle against 4-color Omnat, and especially if that's a version of 4-color Omnat which plays Enigmatic Incarnation and other enchantments which are very good against these kind of things. Okay, so they just played the Snoop, and then they play Snoop again, and I killed one Snoop, killed the second Snoop. I played Urion to draw 3 more cards with Omens and Omnat, and that was enough for them, so they conceded. Okay, so game two. Before game two, I'll just say that I brought in Fury, and I think I brought in the second Besieger because goblins often have Magus of the Moon or mostly Blood Moon on the sideboard. So I also brought in one Knight of Autumn, and that was it. Just those 3 cards. I don't think I need anything else. You can side out a lot of stuff. I mostly side out Glassball Mimic when I bring in the second Besieger or some other non-land card. Um, uh, aside from that, I think I removed one Ephemerate and one Showdown of the Skulls when playing second. It can sometimes be too slow. So that's it. Okay, so having Fury is definitely a great thing here, especially with Ephemerate. So they played Snoop, which means just one more thing. Again, I decided to use my abundant growth to play it on some land that doesn't produce only one color, and I think these kind of plays are often very important because it can mean the difference between win or loss uh, in many cases. So um, at this point, just using my spreading seas is kind of cantrip, which also can win me a game when I draw enigmatic incarnation, which I did. So at this point, just played my enigmatic incarnation and infinitely kill everything they put on table. So I decided to set my spreading seas and not abundant growth. Also with abundant growth, I could find phantasmal image and copy fury, but if I set my abundant growth, I wouldn't be able to cast my Omnat next turn, so I would have 2 blue mana. So again, they went what else but Conspicuous Snoop. Um, but I had a lot of enchantments that are sackable, so I went for Phantasmal Image, copied my Fury again, and killed their third Snoop, so that was enough for them. Okay, so Was this game 2? Yes, that was game 2. And the last game was my toughest matchup. So, previous two leagues with the deck, I was also 4-0 and run game 5 into Living End. And it's definitely the hardest matchup for this deck. So I think I would say that is the only bad matchup for this deck. Living End and maybe some other combo decks like Belcher, stuff like that. But for Belcher, you have Collector Ophi uh, and your Enigmatic Incarnations to turn them. So you have an obvious game plan. And but combo matchups are definitely the hardest for this deck because if you notice, I don't play any disruption that is good against the combo. So no counter spells in main because you just can afford to play those in this kind of deck where you want to get out the most value on the table and just be able to kill and beat all the mid-range decks and decks that are similar to yours. So you're pretty favorable to win against Mirror, against other four color Omna decks because it has definitely much more value in this deck than a regular four color Omnat decks. You don't play expressive iterations, but reefs, showdowns, and incarnations are definitely very good in getting board and card advantage. Okay, so game 1 against Living End playing second, so pretty unfavorable to win, also mulliganing, but uh, I was kind of thinking there's no chance I'm winning this, so I'll just play my regular game, see what happens. I didn't even have my third land, so I went to scry for it. I thought like my only chance was to if they don't draw land, but they did draw it, and they did play Living End, but only with two creatures in graveyard. So in response, I evoked my Solitude, put it to graveyard to kill their Vaker. So there were left just two creatures on the field, which I felt is more than doable. To win like that, if they attack me for 5, then I attack them with Solitude, so it's pretty okay position for me. So at this point, there was no point of playing Teferi and bouncing their agent because it would just they would just be able to fill their graveyard and go Living End again. So I played my Prismatic Ending on Charlotte's agent, so I'm able to attack with my Solitude next turn. And as I said again, I didn't see much point in playing my Teferi. And they did cycle a lot of creatures here. Exiled my Teferi, attacked for another 5, but luckily they didn't have. I'm sorry, they did have Living End, but two of those were in the graveyard, and third one probably in their hand, so they weren't able to Living End again, which was pretty good for me because I was able to put Rising Reef on the field and attack with my Solitude to gain some life. So at this point, I just play my Orion to try to draw. Just a second. Just a second, I will pause this. Okay, so I'm back. I would say that it was a pretty lucky game one win because I'm pretty unfavorable to win a game one if playing second and without drawing my Teferi. So at this point, I just blinked my Rise and Reef and Solitude to get two more Rise and Reef abilities, and my opponent conceded after that. So that was it, game one. As I said, definitely pretty lucky to win this game one, but they decided to go Living End with just two creatures in the graveyard, and I had my Solitude. And if they didn't do it, then I would be able to play my Teferi, and which would also win me the game. So let's go to check our sideboard plan against Living End. So we bring in two Rest in Peace, Magus of the Moon, two Teferis, so four Teferis overall, two Endurances, also Mystical Disputes if I'm playing first, which can help me protect my Rest in Peace, and it's good against their force. And that's it. So also I bring in one Sanctifier in deck because just it helps a bit against the deck because I have so much cards that are bad against it, and you can just take out anything you want, but primarily you bring out four prismatic endings, and other is less relevant, definitely. So that's it. Uh, let's check out the game two. As I said, this is the hardest matchup for the deck, and I had to mulligan my first hand. I had an okay hand with Rest in Peace in Magus. Uh, I was playing second, which meant I have to resolve my Rest in Peace on turn 2, but that didn't happen, and they didn't have their third land, so I was able to resolve my Magus of the Moon, which was kind of game over for them. I think they didn't really expect Magus here, so they didn't probably board for Magus, and I just started to draw my mana fixings and spreading seas, abundant growths, stuff like that. So kind of everything I need. And when I drew multiple abundant growths, they conceded because they don't have solution for the Magus. And that's it. So that was the whole 5-0 league. Um, I could maybe go through some more games. I think this game was kind of interesting. Let me just check if that's the one. Oh, this was the humans. We can check a few games here also. Just try to see how the deck plays out against lot of different matchups. So any creature deck is a good matchup for this because you have a lot of ways to kill creatures. They played Talia, they played Wild, but that all doesn't mean much uh, because I had two endings, I had my Wren, I had my Apparition, Deputy in hand, along with the Phantasmal Image. But they did have their best card against any control deck, which is Turak, and it's definitely very hard to kill Turak here. But I started my regular game plan just to get my Rising Reef, try to grind with Rising Reef, and that's it. That's the most I can do, definitely. So at this point, they played Meddling Mage on my Rising Reef, so my only option was to just go Solitude, and also attacking with Solitude means I can gain some life and try to live longer because all my removals are white, and it's definitely hard to kill this Turak. But it's not too bad. You have some options. You can grind it out with Reef, which I did. Also drew another Solitude. So they only had Turak here and nothing else, and low cards in hand. They played this on my Ephemerate, but I had another Solitude in hand for another Resin Reef ability, and then replayed my Ephemerate to kill a Hierarch, and then being able to attack with Solitude is all I need. To gain me some life and to be out of the Turak range, and that was it. When I played my second Solitude, they conceded. Okay, so for this matchup, you bring in definitely the second Fury. You can bring in Knight of Autumn to be able to kill the Aether Vial, and also Magus of the Moon. So that's it. Just okay, so that's it. Um, let's check out the game 2. Again, one lander, but with the Topia Sprawl and the Banted Growth, I feel really good at keeping those. So already drew another land here, and had my Solitude Ephemerate turn 2, along with my Abundant Growth. So I was in a pretty good position at this point. They can play creature this turn because I have my Ephemerate going, and also Knight of Autumn to kill the Aether Vial and slow them down. That's really great. So I would say really good hand against their hand at this point, and I just need my fourth land to kill them and to end this game. Okay, so just getting fourth land and my orient to hand means that I have a very strong, very strong hand with Yorion, but they again had Turak, which is the best card in this matchup for them definitely, and Turak complicated game definitely. But I was still left with my solitude, which meant I definitely have some chance here. I was on a lot of life, but Turak attacking for 6 meant that it was going to fall off quickly. And we were both on top deck modes, so I just drew my Skyclave apparition, start attacking them to gain some life. But Turok is definitely a clock here, and I definitely needed to draw good here to keep up with it. And they decided to stay back with Turok, so I had to do it too. And but at this point, I was kind of definitely drawing better than them, and which is normal because my draws are expected to be better than theirs. And at this point, they weren't really able to attack. Uh, so they decided not to block my solitude, which is kind of really weird. I would definitely block my solitude here. And then drawing Omnat meant it's definitely the best draw, and meant I will gain more life, and that I'm feeling really good about staying back and just playing my Horizon Reef. Also, with Omnat on a field, I really care a lot less about. I decided to go with my Omnat, attack with my Omnat because I had another one in hand. I just traded. It's not a very good trade, but I was definitely going to play my second Omnat anyway, so it was good for me. At this point, they did have a second Turek, which complicated things a bit, but I also had a lot of damage. Uh, and drawing Enigmatic Incarnation was definitely good, so I was able to attack and force them to block. And end turn, I was able to fetch my second Horizon Reef, which gets me two Turek blockers, and that's definitely a problem for them. Yeah, that was little damage for them, my Fury. Okay, so that was it. That was game two. I had a very interesting game against Tron. I think in this league, so I'm trying to find that one. I don't know if it's this one. Yeah, I think that this is this one. So at this, I will just go through this game because I think it was really interesting. So you can watch this. Obviously, going run with procedure in hand is definitely very good, especially against Ron. But they also have a very good hand with Relic, but they probably didn't expect my procedure, so I was able to kill their land and bring procedure back into my hand. So this was a very weird. Okay, at this point they exiled my Besiege, but I kind of had to do it. It was my only Besiege game one. I don't have a second one, but I was kind of forced to do it because they would have a turn next turn. So I was able to kill one more land before they exile it, and it was okay because at this point I had enough mana to start doing a lot of powerful stuff. And I'll just pause here because this was the most important decision about this game. So I knew they were going to have Tron next turn probably, and they revealed Ugin with ancient stirrings. So my plan was to find my charming prince and exile Omnat, which means if they go Ugin and exile all my permanents, my Omnat is going to come back at the end of turn and then be able to kill again. So it was definitely the most important decision. And at this point, they didn't have much choice but to play Yukin here and kill my Renan Incarnation. But that was okay for me because I was getting back my Omnat and the card in hand, and I wanted to start attacking them and just played my Fury because I wanted to get as much damage to the field as possible, but they had the Oblivion Stone, so I played my second Omnat. I still had some good stuff to do here, so I went for my Omnat and Yorion to draw another card here, but it was kind of difficult position for me at this point, and they had another Oblivion Stone to kill all my board again. So Uh, I didn't have much in hand, but one Rising Reef changed all that and allowed me to copy it with Glasspool Mimic to get a lot of cards in hand. And if you have your Rising Reef on table, that means that you can do some pretty powerful stuff. So I had deputy of detention at this point, but I decided that I will go to kill my Wurmcoil, to kill their Wurmcoil this turn, do more abilities with Rise and Reef because their Karn was on 3, and if they decided to kill my another permanent, they'll have to kill it, which they did. And they did play another Karn, but at this point they were left with no cards in hand, and I had my deputy ready to exile a card. So this is, I would say, this is the way you beat Ugin, 2 Oblivion Stones, and 2 Karn Liberated. But that still wasn't it. They played the Karn, but I don't know why they found Torment Script really, so I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. If maybe they didn't have, I'm not sure why they did find the Torment Script. Maybe they thought it's important for some reason. But at this point, I really don't care about most of their stuff. Because I have a lot of things going on, but Ephemerate is definitely a great top deck here, which allowed me 2 more Rise and Reef abilities. and to exile their worm call, continue attacking them, and play my third Rising Reef. And draw Spreading Seas, shut down their Tron. As I said, it was a pretty difficult game. I had to deal with two Oblivion Stones, Ugin, two Karns, and Liberated, and one Great Creator. Only doubtful play by my opponent was finding that Torment Crypt, and I just had enough damage, had lethal damage, found my lethal damage with two Omens. This was a bit earlier version where I played two Omens. And three Spreading Seas, but I decided that it's better to play just four Spreading Seas and one Omen. Because I have enough removal anyway, so I had my little here with two Wrens. So that was it, game one. Game two was also interesting, so we'll go through that one too. Okay, so for this matchup, I bring in the second Basiiju, definitely Collector Ophi, Mouse of the Moon, Knight of Autumn, and that's it. You can take out your Glasspool Mimic when you're bringing in Basiiju. You can take out your where it is Omen of the Forge. When you're playing second, you can always take out one showdown. It's a bit worse when you're playing second, but it also digs very good for Solitude and Fury, so it's not a definite. You don't want to get rid of your showdowns that often because it's a card that brings you a lot of cards, and it can be very often a card that wins you a game by gaining that much card advantage. So we'll go through this game. Them starting with Forest, it's pretty good news for me. I had an okay hand with the Spreading Seas and Wren. And them just playing Forest. Meant I was going to have more time with especially with my Spreading Seas. So they did succeed to find another expedition map, but I had my Spreading Seas, which meant that I get another turn with them not having Tron, and which allowed me more time to draw my second Spreading Seas. And this matchup, I feel it's all about gaining a time. When you get to 6 mana, then you can win with them having Tron. So I think the main thing you want to do is get to the point where you play your 4 mana, 5 mana spells. And this something weird with this video. Something weird happened here. I feel like something weird really happened here. Like turn skipped. There's definitely something weird with this video. This is not how game went at all. I think this is some kind of bug with the video. Yeah, this is something weird happened here. The video didn't show till the end. Too bad. It was also interesting game too. Okay, so I think I will conclude this video with this game. This last two games that I showed were also from 4-1 League, in which I played Living End Game 5 and lost to Living End 0-2. It could easily also be 5-0 League if I didn't run into Living End, which, as I said again, is my worst matchup with this with this deck. So that's it. I'm pretty happy with this deck list. It's my final deck list. I played this deck a lot in paper and online, and I think it's perfectly tweaked like this. But I still have maybe one or two doubtful spaces here. So in paper, actually, I play 28 lands, and on online, I decided to play 27. That is the only difference uh, with these two lists. And in paper, I don't play Teferi main. Just play Teferi on sideboard, and I play one land instead of it. And I think I think I play Second Fury over second Teferi. So that's it. But my metagame at my local game store is a bit different than online metagame, and that's the reason why I don't play at the Fairy main. Uh, but that's it. So for the online metagame, I'm pretty happy with this list. And deck is really strong, and it has a really crazy win rate, and which is kind of normal because it is a four-color omelette pile, which is, I think, the best deck in a modern format right now. So it's not strange that this little cousin of standard four-color piles has also a very nice win rate. But I think this version of a deck is much more fun to play, and you can't really get bored of this deck as you can with some other versions. So, and it's Rise and Reef is definitely a big factor for this deck being more fun to play. Because everybody loves getting these Rise and Reef abilities on this deck, and being able to tutor your Rise and Reef with the Enigmatic Incarnations, even more often than by in standard elementals when you tutor it with Harbinger. I think this version has more consistency, and it's definitely more grindier. And there are really a lot of matchups that really can't deal with this card. Okay, so that's it. Hope you like the deck and video of gameplay. Uh, that's it for this time. Okay.